Hey guys, what's happening this morning? We gonna have us a little conversation about the auto auction today. Yesterday we were talking about some white flags, some red flags on buying cars, and finding resources to do all that crazy stuff. But today, one of the questions that came up, Auto Buff asked me, said, "What do you think about ACV auto auctions?" Which is a great question, actually. Um, but I couldn't really elaborate because it's such a big topic that you can't just like jump into it because it's just too big. But anyway, long story short, if you guys would give this thing a like or a dislike, it doesn't really matter as long as people like or dislike you, right? You just got to be out there. But I need this stuff to get shown, so I appreciate that. And of course, whenever you get a chance to comment on these things, it really helps it out too. Meanwhile, let's talk about some auto auctions. So one of my well, let's talk about what kind of different ones they are because if you're new in this, you probably are a little overwhelmed. So let's kind of break them down. First, the typical auto auction that we all think of immediately is like your national chains, like Mannheim's or Odessa. One of the some of the bigger auto auctions we immediately gravitate to. And then if we start thinking online, we've all been kind of conditioned to think about eBay and stuff like that. But the truth is, there's more options than just the national chains that we have available to us. And one of the things that Autobuff pointed out was ACV, which is, ironically enough, when I was growing up in the car business, one of the first terms I learned, which actually means actual cash value. I love their play on the initials. I don't know what their initials actually mean, but whatever. But that's kind of that's an app. Like, that's the new way auctions are done, or probably where it's kind of heading because they have their own place, and we'll talk about them in a second. And then you have like local auto auctions that try to house dealers, but they do a lot of public auctions. And then you have some smaller private. When I say private, like the guy might only own one auto auction or two auto auctions, kind of regional. So you have regional, then you have national, and then you have the big eBay, and then you have stuff like ACV. Actually, ACV is the only one I know of that's quite like that one. And then of course we have government sales, and then public auctions, which are done completely different than what we think of as an auto auction, but yet a resource for cars. So let's talk about which one would be best for you, or what your application, or what my personal application. Like I said, it's just us having a conversation. So whatever that's worth to you. Oh, and then throw it into, we have dealers that have auctions now, like CarMax, and I'm trying to think of someone else. Anybody else can think of somebody else that I'm kind of might be passing up on here. But I was thinking CarMax has their little auction. They're kind of a big name. And then some dealers will have private bid sealed auctions. So anyway, there's auctions all over the place. So what this really comes down to is what each one could really actually provide you, and then what you're actually selling as a car dealer. So are you attempting to get into high end, like if you're getting to late model, meaning less than 5 years old, or are you concentrating in the 5 to 12,000 range? Are you below five, say 3 to 5, or are you 1 to 3? Depending on what category you're in, it's going to depend on the auction that works for you. Now, specifically, when he was talking about the ACV auctions, a lot of franchise dealers use those because now they don't have to transport their vehicles. They basically, it's an app. And if you're a car dealer, you should have the app. And basically, it allows you in your region to be able to look at cars that are actually for sale. And sorry about the phone there for a second, but it's trying to move it. So it allows you to look at cars that are for sale in your area by dealers. They're real short little auctions. I think it's like it's a pretty small increment, like probably like $100 or something. And they basically come out, grade the car, and to me that's kind of a safe bet. So if I was smaller and I'm trying to manage my money and I don't want to get a lot of time wasted, there is a big value for the ACV auto auction system because one, if you go to, let's say you went to Mannheim's today, you would spend 7-8 hours there. It's an all-day process. And then on top of an all-day process, you can't really take the time to look at what you want to look at. So that's the big problem with Mannheim is the time that it takes. Then there's the fees. If you're selling at Mannheim, it costs you second you register the vehicle. Then there's the pickup fees. Then there's the time, the transport. I mean, there's just a lot going on. It just take a vehicle to sell it, and then when you go to buy it, the fees are a little higher too. ACV, on the other hand, would be able to. They'll come out. They'll grade your stuff. You go on their website. It's like a little app, a phone app, and when you post a car, pretty much everybody in your little area that's looking for whatever, they've got their search criteria out. Let's just throw out you had a 2010 Corolla. You put it on there, boom, 20 minutes later, it's probably going to be sold. Now, the thing is, I have 2 or 3 friends of mine that use this system. Now, I don't know what AutoBuff, I don't know if he uses it or not, but they basically say it's hit or miss, right? It's kind of like any auction. But it is extremely convenient. I'll give it that. So if I were you, you definitely need the app just so you can have access to more cars around you and then go through their little process to hook up and sign up and all that. So that's what I would use the ACV for, just kind of seeing what's going on locally. Because, a good deal is sometimes just finding inventory. So if you have inventory there available to you, it is better than just sitting there with no inventory. And it may be something specifically you're looking for, especially if you got somebody of yours that just came up and said, hey, or a customer and said, hey, look, I want this, that, or the other, and you can see it on the app, and then you'd be willing to pay for it. You know what I mean? And you have that confidence because the car's been looked at and at least it's been graded. I think they do, they check the tires and they do a paint scan on it and some other things. So you get a pretty good feel of what you're buying. So it's not a big mystery when you go pick it up, unlike a lot of other auctions. So as far as that's concerned, I would say definitely you want that in your wheelhouse. Now, let's talk about eBay for a second. eBay is an awesome platform. I mean, I don't know how many cars are sold on eBay, but it's a lot of them. And the reason is because they have a world market. Is every car for eBay? Probably not. I don't think their fees are really that bad. Basically cost you $100 or whatever to sell on eBay. But what eBay provides you that you can't get anywhere else is that huge audience from the private end sector. So us as car people, we get hung up into just something weird that we can't sell. Let's say like a dark green Corvette. Nobody wants them. But somebody somewhere is going to want it. And eBay's how you would find that customer, right? Customer comes from weird stuff. Now you can use, if you're a good car buyer, you can use eBay for common cars, say like a Nissan Sentra or a Toyota Camry or something like that. They're going to bring good money, but it's consistent. It's good money and consistent. You're never going to knock a home run. You're not going to kill people or anything like that, but you will make, they'll bring a fair average money. And even cheaper, decent cars, if you have something decent running and you want to sell it, eBay's a great option because people I know it's weird, but they go on eBay and they're like, hey, my kid needs a first car. There's all kinds of buyers on eBay from every range and spectrum, and a lot of times we forget about that because we're just so caught up in our little circle of life that we're in. But eBay does offer that. But the one drawback to eBay, number one, is time, because it does take at least a week. And you could do the shorter auction if you wanted to, but if you were going to do it right, then you do also, then it's the whole payment thing, right? Then you have to deal with the PayPal, the this, the that. And then it's the pickup, and then you have to go with the customer actually picking up the car, and, if they flake out on you or whatever. So it's kind of it's a plus, but it's also a minus, if that makes sense. Now, yes, you need eBay in your wheelhouse. So I'm telling you right now, you want ACV, you want eBay in your wheelhouse. Now let's talk about the national chains. You don't need that many of them unless you're wholesaling cars. But if you're just a guy that has less than 100 cars on a lot, you don't really need to be going to 30 different auctions. Just don't need it. You could just pick, depend, Odessa and Mannheim's, they're the biggest ones out there. Of course, they got access to everything in the world. They got the latest, the greatest of everything. The only problem is you got to pay premium money for that access. Now, do you need Mannheims? Yes, because when markets are hot, you can take your inventory and you can sell it and cash out immediately. Like, it is super fast. Cash that day, you're ready to rock and roll. So in a cash point position, I want to hook up with a national chain. As a smaller dealer, I want a national chain, eBay, ACV, it doesn't matter. We don't have Odessas close to us anymore, and I don't travel to them, so I don't use them anymore. But they're out there, and if they're in your region or your neighborhood, then that's fine. Let's talk about like smaller places like the CarMax. So CarMax will buy anything, and what they do is they have those auctions so they can flush them out. Now, are they making good money on them? Yeah, they pretty much are, and they've already checked the cars out. So you got a pretty good idea of what you're dealing with CarMax. CarMax isn't that bad. I've bought a few cars from them occasionally. CarMax is one of those places where it's a good resource. The smaller you are, the better the one-on-one contact is. So if you go to a small place like CarMax that has maybe 50 or 75 cars you're trying to sell, that's great for you because you get a real good feel of what you're dealing with. And it gives you a little opportunity to make some money, because if CarMax sold 3 good ones and made $1,000 a piece on them, and they got what we call a turd, I hate to use the language, but that's what we call them. But if we have a turd sitting back there and that's what you're after, then you can pick that car up probably for nothing, because CarMax is going to dump it. I mean, they just don't care. I mean, it's just a numbers game with them. So there's opportunity with CarMax to really make a good profit. And, I would put your local CarMax in the mix too. So that's 4 that I'm telling you right off the bat. Now, as far as public auto auctions, so you have the auctions that some auto auctions specifically cater to the public. Those are kind of hard to buy from because then, like I said, you're catering to the public. So the competition becomes a little too stiff for us to really make any money. However, if you're smart, you can take you can take stuff from CarMax, clean it up, send it over to the public sale, and make a ton of cash. I mean, you can do that all day long, and that can be your business model. That works fine. And so public auto auctions, I don't ever go to them, but you could definitely do it. I mean, it's a thing. There's a few in our region because we're kind of a Tri-City area, so there's a couple around us that or they do good. They have good models. They have tons of cars. So, I mean, they're doing business. It's healthy. And once again, once you niche out, once you decide, hey, this is like kind of my model of how I'm going to move cars from A to B. And that's our whole goal, right? We want to A, buy the car, and B, sell the car. So we got to take that window from this tall and make it like this big. So we've got to figure out which one of these moves the fastest for what we want it for. And then there's like Copart and the insurance auctions. There's so many of them, but I would stay really focused. Sometimes the regional auctions for dealers are really nice because they're very specific, or they're not as well known. And when you get regionally, some stuff does better than other things. Give you an example. You could go into the Midwest. I'm just throwing this out there. Like some Midwest areas, let me take it back. 4-wheel drives in the South don't do as good as 4-wheel drives in the North. I'm just kind of making that real general statement there. Meaning, if you went regionally and you went to someone kind of on the further side of where you're at and you were buying 2-wheel drives for nothing because they don't see any value in them, and then you brought them to an area that the 4-wheel drives were hot in, that would be good. Whereas that's from a regional place, but if you went, say, to Mannheim's or one of the national, they're going to be more closer in line to their value. I know it's weird. It's weird. You just got to find the weird stuff that works. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on the auto auctions. I don't know what you guys are thinking out there, but I would definitely, I would keep them in the wheelhouse. I would be all about making stuff, as many options as you got. It can only help you. So you're not going to hurt yourself by, the more exposure you have, the more opportunities you give yourself, the better is your chances of success. So myself, I only use a few things, but I pretty much it's a little easier for me to get stuff done because I've been doing it a long time, and plus I kind of already know the values of stuff, and I've got resources to pick up cars. But and you will too. Like it just takes a little while to get established to where you get those resources to find cars from. But in the beginning, when you're looking around, just feel where you're comfortable at, right? So some auctions are real welcoming and they try to accommodate you. I've been to auctions in South Florida, man. Let me tell you something. I would rather saw off my leg than sit there in those lines. I mean, the auctioneers are shit. They're trying to hustle you. They've got, fake buyers out there. And, you get that whole vibe and screw all that. Those kind of auctions I don't go to. But if you get to a professional auctioneer that knows what he's doing, and they'll look you straight in the face when they're getting your bid, and you know that they're being honest with you, and you got that feel and vibe, that's your place. That's your home. That's where you need to be hanging out. And, just wherever you feel comfortable, and then the niche that you want to be in. And like I said, there's a handful of them up there to digest, so think about it. And if you guys come up with a subject you want to talk about tomorrow, or you want to elaborate on any of that stuff, that's cool too. Just hanging out today, so just let me know if there's anything I can do for you tomorrow, man. And y'all have a great day, and I will see you soon. Later.